Welcome, one and all, to Doughty Street, to this event celebrating Kirsty and, of course, Helena, who will be in conversation. It's often said, mistakenly, that virtue is its own reward. It's not, of course, and Kirsty has been toiling for years, unrecognized, until this year, in which she is suddenly pro bono barrister of the year, international female lawyer of the year, and so we'll have our recognition of her as a stalwart member of Doughty Street. It's often also said, more correctly, that justice must be seen to be done. I would say that injustice must be seen before anything is done about it. And that's the purpose of Kirsty's career, in exposing injustice. And that is why it's necessary for barristers to go to God-forsaken courts all over the world where atrocities are being committed, where lies are being told by police, where people are being brutally treated, where judges are manipulating the record to pretend that people are guilty when they're not. It takes lawyers, barristers who know what's happened and expose injustice. And that has been the great work of the Bar Human Rights Therapy, done pro bono, always without fee or pay, and sometimes taking weeks, even months, to observe the trial and write a report that exposes what is really wrong about it. And that work, of course, it goes back to 1649, Cromwell's Solicitor General said that barristers, in return for their prerogative of earning great fees, should spend 10% of their time working free for the poor. His idea didn't go down very well at the bar then. It was subsequently disemboweled. But it was revived, I think, we can trace it to the 1960s, to another great founding member of these chambers, Louis Rondeau, who began with Amnesty International, his friend of Peter Benson and Foundry, and he went out to missions on the treason trials that were being conducted so barbarically by former colonies, and he exposed them in Ghana and Nigeria, and that showed what barristers could do to expose injustice. In 1990, the bar worked with the Law Society of the Scottish Bar to expose what was happening in Hastings, Bangor's Malawi, the killing of his opponents and so forth. And that began, if you like, the Bar Human Rights Committee, the English bar's concern for human rights, but it was a very limited concern. It was a totally underfunded concern. There was no money for airfares or hotel expenses that was necessary. And it was with Kirsty's chairing of the Bar Human Rights Committee that she persuaded the bar to fund it properly with money for those things and develop links with bar groups in other countries, from Colombia to Nigeria, and arrange trial observations. There are barristers now in Turkey looking at the trumped-up trials of Erdogan's journalists and judges. So it is now a very active thing, thanks to all the work that Kirsty has put in. Some of the reports have had real effect. The report on Sri Lanka after the genocide, the sacking of the Chief Justice for bringing in a decision, quite the right decision, that the government didn't like, was exposed in a report and led, once Raj Rapaska was the author of the genocide, was disposed of, led to her reinstatement of the Chief Justice. So Kirsty has been very active personally, going a lot of places into jungles. In Colombia, we anxiously consider the management board and decide whether we should insure her life. The other jungle she's been in recently, of course, was the jungle at Calais, and she did a report with others on the committee, which has been accepted by the Immigration Appeals Tribunal in a number of cases. So that's how valuable she has been, and so she has had this experience and this work, and has done it at some sacrifice, because, of course, as I say, it's all got to be done pro bono. Pro bono are the two words that Kathy Lett said to me she most hates to hear, unless it means I'm acting for a wealthy Irish pop singer. But tonight we're going to talk through some of the experiences, and some of the problems, and some of the future of English barristers, solicitors for that matter, working for human rights. So we're going to have with Helena a discussion of those issues, and no doubt you can answer questions, and then there are plenty of drinks afterwards. So we're going to have a little cinematic surprise for Kirsty at the end. Decided to have it at the end rather than the beginning, because we feared that it might break her morale. We shall see. Over to Helena.
Well, first of all, can I just say, Kirsty, congratulations, because you've had a fantastic time and done incredible work for the Bar Human Rights Committee. But I wanted to start by saying, isn't it fantastic? Your family are here to see you being celebrated by so many people, so many organisations. Can you join me in saying well? You produced an incredible woman. And she really is an incredible woman. And I don't know where Jeff gets this idea from, that you suddenly only came to public attention this year. Because for any of us working in the field of human rights, Kirsty, you've been well known and well sung by all of us because of the incredible work that you've done. I wanted to start a bit earlier because you're a girl from the north.
I am.
Where are you from?
So I'm from a little place called Wickley Woods near Chorley. So Lancashire, very important. Everybody in Lancashire is very different to Yorkshire.
Obviously,
in London, I'm not talking about friends here from other countries. I'm talking about London.
Yeah. They know the difference. They know that there's somewhere out there that's called the north.
Absolutely.
And we're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you were born there. Where did you study law?
So I studied law at Birmingham University.
What made you doing it?
Well, I think at that time, I mean, it was very much, slight apologies, it's a bit weird having my family here and saying this, my mum and dad are here, but it was quite a working class thing of you did medicine or you did law. And they were
a proper job at the end of it.
Proper job, proper career, a proper degree.
Yes.
You know, so you didn't do anything like, you know, a language or English, it was all a little bit, you know, that philosophy and all that, you know, they weren't proper degrees. So, and I was no good at sciences. So law was the one that, I mean, it was really as basic as that. And then when I started doing law, then there was that decision on where you wanted to go. Did you want to go to the bar or to be a solicitor? And you had to make that decision at university at that time. And I got quite into debating, in mooting. I actually found I was quite good at, very surprisingly, I was very much the kind of outside runner on mooting. I remember the law faculty when I entered the mooting competition, and I was just seen as the person who would have no chance. And then I won the mooting competition, and it gave me quite a lot of confidence. And I thought, maybe I can do this analysing the law stuff. So I went back there. Yeah.
You started as a civil practitioner and really then moved into criminal work. And so people know that, I mean, we all think of you, and one of the things that we have to celebrate tonight is your international work, which has been just incredible. But you've had a very distinguished practice at the bar, and you know, let's not forget that. Doing really interesting cases, often quite interesting, challenging new stuff. You did the first jury-less trial,
Yeah.
don't approve of them, because they believe that juries are a good thing. But you did that first trial,
Yeah.
where an application was made and they decided that these scoundrels had to be tried by a judge in Dublin. Yeah. And so you that big sort of first. You also were involved in the first time of having a murder trial tried in camera.
Yeah.
And that again was one of those things that you needed something named for you. You've done lots of work, really important work around children's rights in this country too. And I wanted to ask you about some of that before we start talking about your international work, because you started off in the Assembly Chambers, which, as I said, was a civil law chambers. What made you switch over?
Well, first of all, I started off, it was called Two Crown Office Row then, and it's now called Littleton Chambers, so it's a pretty well-known set of chambers, civil, employment, law, and I was very lucky. They gave me a scholarship, and that was from doing a mini pupillage, and the Barrister called Anthony Sendor, who I'm still in touch with, he, after the mini pupillage, really fought for me to come in there. I've never really asked him why, actually, I have to say, but that set me up. But I did get taken on there. I have to say I felt I didn't really fit in. I never felt I fitted in. It was a very traditional set, and it was back in the times when pupils had to make tea for the senior members of the chambers, and that was something
Which makes a great cup of tea.
Great cup of tea. In fact, actually, I was in a slightly kind of radical, my pupil master, relatively speaking, was fairly radical in that he made sure I never made the tea. So I managed to avoid that particular duty. And then it was a real scrabble, actually. I went to another set and I did my second and third 6 months pupillage in a common law set. And then I applied to do another pupillage in a very small common law set, and they offered me tenancy when I went for the interview. And I remember having this debate about, should I take it? Because it all felt to me a lot of responsibility. It was suddenly there, and I thought, at that time, I thought I'd go off and become a journalist. Mm-hmm. And so I was told by a lot of people, you must take it because you're out of that pool of pupils and you're in a different pool. So I took tenancy there. It was a place called 10 Grayson Square, and then it collapsed after 18 months. So I was then back to squatting again. But during all this time, I built my own practice. I probably earned more money then than I've earned since, because I used to have the chambers rent and so on and so forth. And so I built my own practice, and I started off, I was doing a mixture, so my background was drafting, High Court. My first case was in the Companies Court, and then I was doing more of a mixture.
Should have been able to keep you in a much better.
If only I carried on the commercial route. Apologies for that. So, but I always kept international going. Always carried on with free pro bono work, because at university I'd worked with homeless. I'd worked taking kids. Deprived kids from inner city Birmingham on holiday. So I always had that kind of drive, and very quickly I was really fighting for the underdog in criminal cases, the same in family cases, and then I probably moved to much more crime, international human rights. And then finally, big thanks to Doughty Street, really. I had a fantastic 10 years at a Chambers. In fact, how I got tenancy from my squatting, just to finish off that story, I was on a train coming back from St Albans Crown Court. I'd just finished a case there, a trial. I was talking to the man who was the barrister who had been prosecuting me. He asked which chambers I was in. He said, come and join us. I was and that was Francis Taylor.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. So I joined, and he became a judge. He retired recently, Philip Matthews, a big supporter. And really they supported me, and then when this set we were in, Francis Taylor Building, didn't want crime, it wanted only civil practitioners. We, as a group, moved to 187 Fleet Street, and again I was very well supported there for 10 years. Met Jeff, met Keir Starmer, who introduced me to Doughty Street, met you, and
threw our arms around.
And here I am, and I very much
introduced you to Doughty Street. But you already started doing a certain amount of human rights work, even before you came to us, and so I think it's important that we start talking about how you got involved in all of that. What was the first sort of human rights thing that you did?
It was probably actually many years ago. I was advising when there was the bombing of Kosovo. I was advising various charities on the ground. So obviously this is going back to the early 90s, mid 90s, early 90s onwards. So I was involved with various charities there, and there was issues with trucks being impounded, trucks getting in accidents which were trying to deliver food to people who've been displaced because of the conflict. And then probably moving forward, the first significant project with the Bar Human Rights Committee was working on death row cases in Jamaica. And that was we have massive issues here with legal aid cuts, but working somewhere like Jamaica, where people are just lost. I mean, they're lost in the prison system. They're totally disempowered, and they have absolutely no access to a court, let alone to justice.
Or even in the more serious cases.
And they're death row cases, yes.
You also did a really interesting case at one stage, I think, where you were, as I understand it, you started doing work around the death penalty, but you also started doing stuff around sort of issues of refugees, and that became a source of interest to you, as well as particularly the business of children as refugees. I just wanted to go through that. Was the Bar Human Rights Committee up and running in the fully fledged way that it is now at that time?
Well, I have to say I love Jeff's introduction, which is all about me. But obviously it's not all about me. The BHRC was founded very much in a small kind of club kind of way back in 1991 to 92. And it has developed, and it's definitely increased its punch. So a lot of this work, I think one of the reasons it's so successful is because the partnerships, some of them are developed going back to that time, going literally back to the early 1990s. There's partners in the room tonight, and some of the longevity is one of the things that actually, and that trust that you build, that enables it to work effectively, because you already know your local partners. And so my first introduction was through Peter Carter, who's a fantastic chair of BHRC, and then I quickly got to know Mark Muller, who became chair
after both of them
after him.
Yes,
both are here. Yeah. And both were very encouraging again, because I had a bit of an impression, what does the Bar Human Rights Committee actually do? It seemed, I didn't know how you actually got involved in it. And they really showed me that I could also work within it and make a contribution. So I was very grateful to that. But I also felt it was still a little bit too close. So one thing I did work on in terms of was it up and running, and we as a committee worked on, was making it bigger, and also including more people, and doing kind of like a roadshow. So we did a tour up and down the country to encourage others to join, to say, look, this isn't about London, this is about getting all of England and Wales, everybody can play a part, because there is just so much need. So
the other thing that we have to keep reminding lawyers about is that actually, there's no, people think that you're a human rights lawyer. I mean, anybody can be a human rights lawyer if they actually, share the values, introduce those values into the work they do, and also make space to actually do some of that pro bono work as well. Yeah. So, I mean, we need that message to get out, and we'll be very good at actually be more inclusive and getting the word out.
Absolutely. And the other thing that we're quite proud of is we're trying to encourage more students to get involved, because obviously they are the future. And I do think that there's only, I love to say, this has made a difference, I have made a difference. But in some ways, I think the differences you make, frankly, they don't last. And we see that things go in cycles. So, for example, with the US, we thought we'd tackle the issue of torture. You do not use torture, extracting confessions. And we thought we'd tackle that a number of years ago. But now we're back there again with this kind of discourse, maybe waterboarding's okay. So I think things do go in cycles, and then there's a responsibility on the next generation just to look at the progress that's been made, act as a backstop, and then push forward again. So the law students I'm very excited by. And also, we're a big shout out to our drafting committee. So we found we're just drafting so many statements of concern, which are basically, those of you who aren't as familiar, we are writing to the presidents, the judges in various countries, including in this country, including, for example, to Theresa May, over when she was meeting on trade deals with Erdogan. It was like, but what about all the judges, lawyers, journalists who were actually arbitrarily detained at this time in Turkey? What are you actually doing? You are obliged, the UK, to raise these human rights violations.
Canada, we've got Erdogan now being the great champion of Khashoggi
and he doesn't recognise the irony. He's now championing journalists with so many now locked up in Turkey. So those statements of concern, and so the drafting committee, where we set up and people applying for the drafting committee, and we have barristers and academics on it, and they again have been invaluable in increasing our capacity to work. So we hope to kind of develop.
I want to go through some of the cases. I mean, there was a sort of ramping up of cases really after 9/11. I mean, the whole 9/11 thing changed the feel of what was happening. I mean, there was a period towards the end of the kind of 1990s when, because of Pinochet and because of bringing people to book for crimes against humanity and so on, it did look as though we were getting somewhere. I mean, suddenly it was like the clock stopped and the hands started moving in another direction after 9/11, and suddenly, detention without trial, the whole business of rendition, all of that stuff, torture and the like, and it did give permission. When Western democracies are doing that, it gives permission to other folk to do it, and it's kind of not been very great ever since. I mean, that's reality. And I just want to take you through some of the things that you were involved in the period thereafter. I mean, for example, you were involved in a whole business about terrorism, as it was being claimed, in Bahrain.
Yes.
That's an interesting, because that was really about all those countries that are oppressive, using the excuse that you just had to label somebody a terrorist and they could do what they wanted to do. And so you became involved in that. So if you will be interested.
So Bahrain is a very important country to the UK. So in some ways there's quite a lot of political leverage with it. But with Bahrain, so I went on a trial observation, and there was three very leading opposition members of the opposition party, Al-Haq, and they'd been detained for terrorism offences, together with 24 others. And this was all after, quite a lot of you will recall, we had the Arab Spring, and then in Bahrain there was uprisings in Myanmar and demonstrations, people actually just exercising their rights to freedom of expression. And there then was really a blanket detention of people, and also terrible torture, which was occurring, and occurring in a particular prison. At that time, it was nicknamed Dry Dock Prison. And I remember one of the things that really affected me. I remember meeting a young guy who had recently come out of prison, and he actually, I can almost picture him now. He was just entirely broken. And he spoke just in a very, very quiet voice. And people around him explained to me he'd just been released. But nobody really said much more than that. But it really demonstrated he clearly had been severely injured. And there was nothing physically that you could see, so it wasn't as if he was walking around with any sort of physical disfigurement. But internally, who knows? Trauma was obviously absolutely massive. And I often wonder what happened to him, whether he survived. But he was one example. The trial I observed, it had a lot of publicity because I think one thing which is really important, and I'm so proud of BHRC with its work on this, particularly in Turkey, has been that the international presence really does shine the spotlight. So, as well as actually sitting in court and observing the trial, and so the judiciary actually see you, there's always quite a lot of media attention. And as an international, you can go on telly, basically. And I'm not going to be locked up. I don't have those same dangers in a country, some countries, yes, but in a country like Bahrain, they weren't going to detain me.
The relationship with Britain is true.
Absolutely. So I could go on telly and condemn what was happening. I do similar thing in Colombia, I've been there recently. And I also had meetings which were really fascinating, including with the foreign minister at the time. And I discussed with him the issues of torture, and just from my own criminal law background, how I remember when I started practice, and quite often we were applying for confessions of defendants to be excluded. I mean, Helena, you also remember this sort of a step back, because although it wasn't torture, it was perfectly normal for the police to give the client a bit of a smacking. And so it was inevitable, okay, so have you been mistreated? And so that actually, in terms of kind of careers and lifespans, wasn't that long ago. It now pretty much never happens, partly because they brought in tape recording to tape record interviews. And so then it was, well, what happened to you with the police car when you were being taken to the station? But I went through this. I remember the minister was quite fascinated by it. And I was basically saying, look, we've been there, but we have developed and we have moved in. And this is not the way to have a justice system. It is not a justice system. Because, and I gave him examples of those cases where the confessions were false, and we had obviously a lot of high profile ones. And in this case, in Bahrain, what they've done is they actually have the confessions on telly. So there was torture, they then put them on national television to say, yes, by the way, I'm a terrorist. And internationally, nobody's convinced by that, and all you're showing is you're violating international law that you've promised to abide by. And we had this very interesting discussion, and 2 weeks later, all these so-called terrorists were completely pardoned, which just shows that obviously it was
Come on now.
How much I contributed, you can never draw a straight line. But all I know is I did get a letter from somebody else who was at that meeting who expressed that he thought that had a
made a difference. Yeah, I'm sure that was things make a difference. Let's go through something else. I mean, one of the areas which has been, I think that your great story that someday you'll write a book about was your involvement in Colombia. And so to explain to people how you became involved, and then eventually the role that you played really in the whole far peace process business, and why you're now kind of, one of these days she's going to get a medal from the Colombian state.
I'm not sure. I think the Colombian ambassador was going to come. I'm not sure if he's here or not. But yes.
So your work there was remarkable. And so how did that start?
Well, that was thanks to, I think this also shows the importance of partnerships. Lawyers, barristers partnering with NGOs, activists, and this was a partnership with Peace Brigades International, a phenomenal organisation. I mean, you're a patron, in fact, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yes, you're a patron. I can't keep up with the number of organisations, but so they're absolutely incredible. So Susie Bascom, the UK director, hugely energetic person, so one of the PBI people here tonight. And there was a woman called Louise Winstanley, then worked for PBI, and I was talking to her. I felt quite frustrated about what was going on in Colombia. There was some newspaper article that caught my attention, and I just thought, surely, like international lawyers can do much more. That we must be able to do much more than we're doing to support these people. And so I was then invited on a fact-finding with journalists from across the globe. And so this was in 2008 or 2009, and literally went on a tour to all the places you should not go in Colombia, all the real kind of hotspots, conflict zones. And there were very long days, and some of the days I'd be sitting in a community and there would be lines of people, lines of families, usually clutching a photograph of their loved one and lining patiently, come and see me, show me the picture, and the same message was, I just want to know where he, she is. I just want their remains, I want to know what's happened. And it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And after a while, I kind of thought, and I was also then got connected to the local lawyers, lawyers called Kahar. I actually saw them actually only on Saturday, they're based in Bogota. And And I came back at that time, the suggestion was let's try human rights training so people understand how to use international law mechanisms. So then I came back with a team the same year from BHRC, and we did training at Autónoma University in Bogotá, and we had activists, journalists, politicians from all over Colombia. They all came, and we partook in this training to try and strengthen people so that because the system was not only paralysed, it still is, the legal system it cannot cope with the mass tragedy. So you have 220,000 murders, 7 million plus displaced. I mean, the figures are staggering, and those are the official figures, so it's much, much more than that, 52-year conflict. So that kind of grabbed me. And then probably the real time of the country actually started around the same time, maybe a couple of years later. I went with the Colombian Caravana, and some of the people from the Caravana are here. So Sarah Chandler's been a real ambassador for the Colombian Caravana. So this was set up by the Law Society, very innovative, and it supports the lawyers in Colombia. And so I went on that, and I was introduced, and I was asked, where would you like to go? And I knew about this community, San Jose de Partido Comunidad de Paz, and I heard about it, and basically a group of farmers refused to be displaced and set themselves up as a peace community in 1997. And I went to see them. They were under a court order, part of which was the Colombian state must apologise for stigmatisation of these farmers as being FARC, and must apologise for a massacre which was committed against them in 2005. Around the same time, through BHRC, I developed a good relationship with the Colombian government, and in particular, former Ambassador Mauricio Rodriguez, and that has since been carried on with the current Ambassador Nestor Osario, as they may well be here. And Mauricio basically said, we had these long discussions, and he basically said, I agree, there must be something we can do. Who do you need to see? So I then found that the doors at a very top level within the Colombian state open. And so it really was just the right people. Without that assistance, I don't think I would have achieved very much.
But it also is the fact that it's because it's the English bar,
Yeah.
it has convening power, and it has that the cachet that makes some of those connections
Yeah.
possible and those doors open.
Yeah,
And so it's not to be sniffed at. I mean, the fact that you can use that
Yes,
power is
absolutely.
important.
Yeah.
So you got to meet government ministers.
Yes, so I then, with the peace community, I asked them whether they wanted me to act basically as a mediator between them and the Colombian government. A little bit of history with them. They cut off all dialogue, all contact with the state after a massacre. So 8 of their community, including their community leader, were macheted to death. And 2 children, one was 18 months old, was macheted, literally chopped into pieces. And this is something which, that suffering does not go away. And there were then, years later, there were some low-level prosecutions, paramilitary prosecutions, but also low-level army who facilitated the killings by the paramilitaries. And after the massacre, they considered the Colombian state for them, all of the state was a murdering machine. And they could not see, they didn't recognize the state. So what I did when they accepted that there could be some dialogue was really getting everyone around the table together. So Mauricio helped me. I had the Vice Minister of the Defense, who was responsible for the 17th Brigade, the army that was accused of, and has actually been convicted of many, many atrocities in that area. And then other ministers from the Minister of Interior, and also from the former President Santos's Human Rights Unit. And I remember when we first met in Bogotá, and I must give a big shout out for Gwen Berniat, who's here, and she was amazing. She's started off with PBI working with the peace community, and also we linked together as a real team. and so she was able to help me with that relationship as well. But I remember the first meeting, and it did not go well. So it was basically, I remember the peace community came, and they accused the Vice Minister of Defence as being paramilitary. This was like within the first 5 minutes, he then said, don't call me paramilitary, I can call you FARC. And I thought, right, this is not very straightforward. It was very, very polarised. So, you know, how I was going to get these two very polarised communities who had suffered so much, actually, on all sides, how to get them to enter dialogue was difficult. But we had a number of meetings, and gradually there were some shifts. And President Santos on International Human Rights Day on the 10th of December 2013 issued a public apology to the peace community. And it was a public apology for stigmatisation of the FARC, which had been carried out by the former President Uribe. And also, it was a public apology on behalf of the Colombian state for what it had done to its people, to these farmers, who all they wanted was to farm cacao and live in peace. And I remember I was walking to, weirdly, I was doing a gangland murder trial at the Old Bailey, and I was on my way there, and I was getting this speech through in Spanish from the Colombian government saying, you know, these are the words, he's going to be delivering this speech in another couple of hours, you know, this is a heads up on it. And I was reading it, and by the time I got to court, I was in tears. It was described as a historic moment in Colombia.
It was a historic moment, and you have been absolutely central to it.
It was President Santos I met twice, and the negotiation to ask him to apologise was in the presidential palace. And I still remember the negotiation over it. I mean, it was very interesting. But with the apology, for me, what was very powerful was he said, "Pido perdón," it's like basically I personally am asking for forgiveness. So for me, when the campesinos, when the farmers were saying, you know, it's just more words, there was a real power to those words, which I think eventually helped them take some ownership of it. I should add, because obviously it's not a Hollywood movie, that basically the peace community who had said this would mean a lot if they had the apology. When I went back to them with the apology, they basically said, we reject it.
Yeah.
So, and I was very pleased with myself by that time. I thought, great, you know, what a heroine, here I am, I've achieved all this. And they said, we reject it. We do not accept, that's not what you said to me earlier. So that then was another process, which could be frustrating. But I still remember when they said to me, you don't understand, we've lived on the fringes of society for so long. All we know is to condemn and be aggressive and condemn. And all we know is that the state represents killing and murder of us as suffering.
Yeah, I mean, when trust has been destroyed so badly that putting any texture back into it is so hard.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But they did, so it took about a year and a half, and they then did publicly accept the apology. So we got them.
Your ear miles must be.
Yeah, I'm
going
going
to show you up to the front of the plane now.
Yeah, it's quite nice. And, it is quite nice actually with the air miles.
But I mean, it is the most phenomenal story, and I want you all to take that home with you, because this woman has never spoken publicly about the success story of what she did there. It's been wonderful, honestly. I feel proud to be your colleague in Chambers. I have to tell you that I recently wrote a book, and I pay a little tribute to Kirsty in it. But I also sort of say I'm in Chambers with the most fabulous women, and the men are not bad too. But you are one of the great, fabulous Doughty Street women. There were other things that you were involved in, and I wanted you to tell that story because I think it's the thing that you will get a medal for. But the Nigerian story is also another great story. I mean, if you could tell a bit about your work in Nigeria.
Yeah, so Nigeria is the other place really, really close to my heart, and I actually have a Nigerian name now, so my name is Ayo. Any people with Nigerian backgrounds here might know, any Yoruba speakers. Ayo Buwale. So in fact, Helena, it means I know you won't believe this of me, and I don't think Doughty Street believes it, but it means joy has come home. So whenever I come back into Chambers, you should be thinking, joy is here. But I don't think, I'm storming into the bathroom or something. I don't think they think that. So I again, now this was an NGO, and in fact was driven by a barrister at Matrix, Michelle Butler. She saw a program, a dispatches program, about children in Nigeria who were stigmatized as witches, and they were thrown out of their homes, excluded from the community, injured, killed even, predominantly children. And she watched the Dispatches program, which was basically a guy called Gary Foxcroft, very good friends. And he, with his charity, had gone and lived in Nigeria previously, and he'd come across this, and he just could not believe that this was happening to these kids. And he was in a particular state where it was very bad in Akwa Ibom. And so we then had contact, so Michelle contacted us, and she said, can the Bar Human Rights Committee do anything to help? And we contacted Gary, and he invited us to come and meet the lawyers that he met and was working with. And then when I met the lawyers, it was pretty obvious that they weren't gathering the evidence and that would not help get any of the cases through the court. At the same time, I was introduced to UNICEF, and again, it was one person. There was a woman there called Noriko, and she had a real vision about setting up child protection networks. They needed training, and I was like, oh, we can do that. And so this was like in 2009, and it started a real partnership on training on child rights, and it fitted as well very much with Gary's work with the stigmatization of witches. And at the same time, so I think the culmination of that is it got into the UN system, and for the first time last year we had a 2-day seminar, experts all over the world who were dealing with this issue of crimes being committed against people stigmatized as witches, particularly kids, and also people with albinism, because that as well was the other thing. And so from that came all the human rights violations in countries like Tanzania, Malawi, different issues with people with albinism in that, and I met one woman, and she's incredibly brave. She has no arms. She was attacked. She's a person with albinism. She was attacked when she was 7 months pregnant. Her arms were cut off. She nearly, obviously, bled to death. Obviously, she lost the baby. And she's become a real phenomenal activist and has achieved a huge amount. And there, the belief is that the body parts are lucky. So you actually do see the statistics in the mining parts and where the fishing parts, the statistics show that there's increased killings of people with albinism in that area because the body parts are used scattered on the mine shaft and actually on the fishing nets. Unbelievable. So what we have done, working all together with activists, NGOs, academics, lawyers all over the world, is we're now getting it into the UN human rights system, and we're able to get a resolution. And in fact, there's another seminar which is now being held at Lancaster University, which is the home of Gary, and that's happening in February. But so Nigeria became as well an absolute passion, and that was because of the people. The people are incredible, working in such difficult situations, and I know some of the people I met through Nigeria working here this evening. So what I would say about Nigeria is I'm scratching the surface, and the people who are living there day to day, trying to get these cases of abuse of children to the courts are the real ones that keep me going back.
And you've been doing training programs there.
Yeah.
And the lawyers are hungry for it, and
Yeah.
are wanting to really understand how they can make use of international law and conventions and the Convention of the Child in those cases. You've done stuff in Zimbabwe too. I mean, Africa's now kind of risen up to the top of your areas of concern. And you've done a lot in Zim.
Yeah, so Zimbabwe has been, the work in Zimbabwe has been particularly with the Mugabe times and supporting free and fair elections. So we did a lot of training. It's quite a funny story with that, because we were all quite worried when we went on a project. We were having a week in Zimbabwe training the lawyers there on what to do when there was going to be corruption and violence around the election process. And we were quite concerned whether we were getting the country, because that was one of the countries, and in fact the special rapporteur had been refused entry into Zimbabwe. And so on the flight over, we would, usual barrister thing, quite last minute preparation as well, making sure you were really on top of your section on the training manual. So a lot of us were using the flight to make sure we were really on top of our section. And we decided we had to leave the hard copy materials on the flight, because if we were searched at the airport, we thought we wouldn't be allowed in. So we all made this decision and decided to do that. And we all also decided to go on the immigration line separately, so that there would be fear or alarm at us coming into the country. And so I went up to, I remember I was first up, I went up to my immigration officer and asked his questions. He was looking at my passport and my visa, and then he just really picked on my name, Kirsty, and he kept asking, your name actually is Kirsty? And I was like, yes. I was thinking, gosh, what's
always when I saw Nigerian meaning.
I know, yeah. And then he was like, it's just like Kirsty Conway. And she was like the Olympic Zimbabwean swimmer at that time. He was really famous and everybody loved her. And he was welcome to Zimbabwe. That was it.
I've got stories like that, about going to observe trials in places like Turkey, and hitching yourself onto people that sort of can't get through. And I once did it with Joanna Lumley. I knew that I kind of recognised her. This was many years ago. And I sort of got chatting to her, and then we went through, and afterwards I said to her, what is it you do? And she sort of said, I'm on television. And she was in at that time the Avengers.
Mega famous.
We've become friends since, because a woman of darkness. Anyway, but I really just want to open it up to your many friends and fans and people who love you in the audience. But I want to say, this is a bad time actually for the rule of law and human rights. I mean, we're seeing a retreat from human rights and indeed the rule of law. I mean, the very fact that judges are being sacked with such ease in Hungary and Poland and Turkey. And you went to Athens not that long ago to
fact-finding there.
Yeah.
So I mean that was quite, because actually
the Turkish judges managed to get out.
Absolutely, and they fled, and it was because you do sadly, you mentioned the jungle in Calais, and myself and Jeff mentioned that, and Jelly Asani was one of the amazing Doughty Street women, member of BHRC. She was with me, and we were watching the dismantling of the camp in Calais, and every so often it would just explode in flames, really poisonous black smoke. Literally, you couldn't see anything. And we were there monitoring on the child rights, and Jeff mentioned the report. There was violations by both France and the UK, but you kind of almost get desensitized to the. You probably would have found this as well. The awful conditions in the camps. You almost become used to it. And suddenly, I was in Athens earlier this year. This was with the Dialogue Society, and I was in Athens in quite nice Airbnbs. Interviewing judges and prosecutors who fled Turkey, but it was quite interesting because their trauma also, it was a different type of trauma. They obviously had more means, but at the same time they'd also left everything. And they'd made that same very dangerous journey. And some of them were, I remember again another conversation they were joking amongst themselves, because one of the questions I asked was how much they paid the people smugglers. And one of them, they were going through, and there was one guy who was like, he looked like your typical real geeky lawyer, and really, really geeky. And of course, he paid 3 times as much as everybody else. And they were all teasing him. And he was like, I'm a prosecutor. I'm not used to dealing with traffickers, trafficking. So there was quite a few sort of like notes of them, but it was a very different thing. But it did show in the absolute purge of professionals, which obviously was very kind of Idi Amin. And exactly the same thing as Turkey, they're just purging, and they've been purged across, and then they're without status, taking years to wait for any asylum applications. Some of them actually I interviewed now have moved on to Germany and have got asylum in Germany, but some are still there, and it's very, very difficult.
They're working as prosecutors in Germany, they're working as minicab drivers.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I was waiting for us all, you know.
Yes, no, absolutely. So it's sort of interesting kind of experience as well, looking at trauma in that way with high-level professionals.
Kirsty, I really just want to say that well, your work has been remarkable, and I think everyone is here tonight to celebrate you because you've been a wonderful chair of the Human Rights Committee for the 6 years period, and all the work you've done in the years before, but culminating in those 6 years of leadership, and it has been really remarkable and wonderful. Will you all please join me in
to the Bar Council, for the Bar Council has really supported BHRC, and it's so appreciated because the Bar Council has enabled it to do what it's been doing.
It gives that convening thing that I was talking about. Yeah, it is wonderful.
So thank you very much. Thank you all.
From the members of the current members of the Bar Human Rights Committee, we are going to miss Kirsty phenomenally. She has grown, she has supported, and she has selflessly done so much work for the people that we work with. She's a huge loss to us, but she deserves the time. And I just want to say thank you very much on behalf of the committee.
Yes, we've got a film we're going to show, but before we show the film, is there anybody in the audience, it's like a Quaker meeting, who would like to jump up and say anything, feel moved? There'll be lots of opportunities to talk as we have drinks and something to eat afterwards, but would anyone like to? There's our friend, come on people, come on. We're talking about, one of the things we're talking about is female genital mutilation.
Yes, we have
one of the great champions of female genital mutilations in the room here, and she's an ambassador for Safe Hands, and a great friend of our Kirsty.
Yes, I met Kirsty, I think, when the FGM protection orders came, and you were part of the panel. And
can I get another shout out? Simran Samuel. We helped draft actually this was a major tribute. We helped draft the female genital mutilation protection orders. We proposed them to the government. I think Seema Malhotra, one of the politicians, is getting us on her way. And so joint effort with the politicians here, we brought in this new legislation. And a lot of activists, in fact, I'm not sure whether you were one of them, Hebo, but they were quite cynical about whether the legislation would work.
I kind of was, and I asked you a question about that.
Yeah.
But that was not why I stood up. No, I remember literally, that was my first time I actually met you.
Yeah.
So you were on the panel, and I just kept, you were talking, you were very, very authoritarian. I was thinking, what a hard, badass woman she is.
I want everyone at that room to hear that. What a hard, badass woman she is. We'll learn with that on your CV. And I want to.
I was thinking, oh my goodness, never to mess up with her. Well, I got to know you, and you are the most phenomenal human being ever. And I think I feel lucky to call you a very close friend of mine. And you have supported me in many darkest hours as well. I just wanted to say, you are a phenomenal, keep being a badass woman that you are.
So obviously we've mentioned so many achievements in various countries around the world that you've had. I'd just like to quickly note all the work that you've done for the Iranian people as well.
Yes.
Particularly drawing attention around the 1988 massacre. You've been a hard activist on that point. Particularly personally, I'd like to thank you as well. My uncle was a victim as well. He was executed at the age of 19. I'm 20, so I've outlived him already. I never met him. But yeah, thank you so much for your work. It's had such a big impact. It's drawn so much attention around the subject. Obviously, previously, the regime had covered it up, twisted it in some ways. But thanks
great
to
to see you
you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The work that the Iranian activists do, there's a number of them here tonight. They just do incredible work. They're still fighting for an inquiry into the 1988 massacre, which is one of the most terrible crimes against humanity. We will keep on trying to get justice for your relatives.
Now, who's going to make the film happen?
That would be me.
Come sit down in front.
Oh, thank you.
Wow. This is already emotional. This is your life. I remember that.
My name is Kirsty Brimelow QC. I'm the chair of the Bar Human Rights Committee of England and Wales.
I want to pay tribute to Kirsty and to the Bar Human Rights Committee for their wonderful work. Kirsty's worked as far afield as India against the death penalty, in Nigeria against the persecution of so-called witches, and where her training and general advocacy has been crucial. And above all, she's worked for the Colombian peace process at great risk to herself and with tremendous devotion of time and effort. So she's been an inspiration to us all. I've always enjoyed working with her, and I know that her work will continue, and that the wonderful work of the Bar Human Rights Committee will continue to make a difference throughout the world, from India in the east to Colombia in the west, and also throughout Europe. So I would just say, Kirsty, we will miss you as chair of the Bar Human Rights Committee, but continue to work with you and enjoy working with you as our colleague.
What cannot be done is saying that national security or public interest are such that there can be a compromise on individual rights that is not in keeping with international or domestic law, and also it is confused because it is not recognising that in fact those rights are there in order to safeguard the functioning of the proper judicial system within Nigeria.
I'm really delighted to join all our colleagues across the world in celebrating Kirsty Brimelow QC as she stepped down as the chair of the Bar Human Rights Committee of England and Wales. So I met Kirsty a little less than 2 years ago. Since then, we've had a very engaging partnership with the Bar Human Rights Committee and indeed the Bar Council, and the very able and dynamic leadership of Kirsty, whom we've come to love and respect very much in Nigeria. Kirsty is an outstanding barrister, but she's more known to us as an international human rights lawyer who has taken a keen interest in the Nigeria Bar Association and indeed in Nigeria. In the last several years, even before her recent engagement with the bar, she has been a regular visitor to Nigeria. Kirsty, who also bears a popular Nigerian name, Ayo, is shared missed by our friends in Nigeria. We do look forward to our continued relationship with the Bar Human Rights Committee in the coming years. Ayo, on behalf of all your Nigeria friends, and especially in the Bar Association, we congratulate you and wish you all the best as you step down as the chair of the Bar Human Rights Committee of England and Wales. I'm confident that you continue to apply your effort and energy in your international human rights work, which you're so passionate about, even if in other capacities. Thank you.
Recently, on behalf of with the Bar Human Rights Committee, been interviewing the judges and prosecutors who have fled Turkey, and been interviewing them to get their experience as refugees. And also with the work we do at the Bar Human Rights Committee, we have barristers who are back and forth to Turkey carrying out trial observations at the moment on the journalists who are in detention, as well as lawyers in detention. Also Amnesty International director and staff also are in detention, so very, very familiar with the very dire situation, terribly sad, tragic situation in Turkey.
You have it in your hand, you see it's a very lengthy report. And that actually was compiled by one of our executive committee, one of the vice chairs, Lina Negrola. It was said publicly that that report was very helpful to the UN working group on arbitrary detention when they came to consider Mohammed Nasheed's case, and in fact they did rule that he was being arbitrarily detained. So that was a report that did have impact.
Tonight, Kirsty Brimelow QC ends her term as the Executive Chair of the Bar Human Rights Committee of England and Wales. Throughout her chairmanship, she has been extremely focused in what was happening in the Maldives. She first came to the Maldives in 2012 as a trial observer. In her words, it was very easy to see that the charge was extremely politically motivated. Kirsty showed us a way on how we may be able to come back again. She represented me as a human rights lawyer in the Maldives, and her part, of course, was substantial in getting my release. First, in getting the country back on a more democratic track, we were able to win the elections, and therefore, after that, my release. Thank you very much, Kirsty.
Vanessa Redgrave obviously needs no introduction. I'm going to give her a short introduction because she's also incredibly modest, so if I go on too much, then she will tell me.
Hello, Kirsty. Hello, all your guests and friends and colleagues who you're going to be saying sort of goodbye to, though I don't think in any kind of permanent way. I wanted to send you my congratulations for the work you've done these last years as chair of the Bar of Human Rights Committee. Bring in your honour Choose Love, which is the T-shirts of the Help Refugees group, charity, who, as you know, do terrific work and have just won a case in the appeal courts on the question of doves, ALF doves, and the children that should be coming here to the UK. I thought I'd put that on because you have chosen love in your own way, and it's a good thing to choose. I wish I could be with you. I'm in a play, this play called The Inheritance. I just want to say I'm sorry that I won't be there at Doughty Street to give you a hug. I'm sorry, but I'm hoping that this will not be the end of my seeing you ever. I send you loads of love, and wish I could be with you this evening. And Carlo sends his love as well. And I guess that's it. Bless you, Kirsty, for all you've done, all you're doing, and all you're going to do. Bye for now.
Desde Colombia, desde el colectivo de abogados José Arreaga Restrepo, admiramos profundamente tu labor como defensora de derechos humanos. Tu trabajo en diferentes latitudes del mundo lo conocemos, por eso te admiramos y por eso te apreciamos. En Colombia también acompañas comunidades como la comunidad de San José de Apartador. Al colectivo de abogados le has colaborado siempre en muchos aspectos para recordar el amicus curiae que hiciste en favor del defensor de derechos humanos David Ravelo Crespo, condenado injustamente por un delito que no cometió. El colectivo de abogados y yo personalmente deseamos para ti la mejor de las suertes en los nuevos retos, que tengas un buen viento y buena mar. De nuevo, desde Colombia, un enorme abrazo de gratitud.
Dos Santos expressed it very well in his apology when he said he had a profound respect and admiration for the San Jose peace community. If that community can work, the rest of Colombia can work. And I think the Colombian government has actually recognised how important it is for the whole peace process. And that is why peace pioneers are really crucial to the future of Colombia.
Thank you so much for all the amazing work you've done to support human rights defenders over the last 6 years that we've been working with you. Peace Brigades International is absolutely grateful for all your support. We have seen how reliable, professional and extremely caring and supportive you've been with many defenders that have come over to the UK, but also you've been prepared to travel to the field and go there and hear about their struggles and learn about ways in which you could support. So for that and for many, many more things that you've done, we would like to say thank you so much, and we would like to wish you the best for the next sort of the stage of your life, and we very much look forward to continue collaborating with yourself and with other members of the Bar Human Rights Committee.
Kirsty, I just wanted to say a big thank you on behalf of the Bar Council and indeed the whole of the Bar for everything you've done over the last 15 years, and particularly the last 6 years as chair of the Bar Human Rights Committee. You've made a huge difference to so many people whose rights you've been defending across the world, really showing everyone, I think, the best of what the Bar can do and be internationally. There are few, I think, who can match what you have achieved. But equally, I have been hugely impressed by your energy, your commitment, your tenacity and your courage. They've been hugely inspiring. I know that the Bar Human Rights Committee will go from strength to strength, building on the foundations that you have created for them. I hope you take a little bit of pleasure in stepping back just a little bit and perhaps getting back to practice. I don't know how you managed to maintain any practice over those years. You take with you the very best wishes of everyone at the Bar and everyone at the Bar Council. Thank you.
so much. I'm completely overwhelmed by that. Thank you everybody who's taken part and actually come this evening. But I also just want to say as well that the Bar Human Rights Committee is going from strength to strength, and its new chair, as we had our elections recently, our new chair, Doughty QC. So it was going to be fantastic. I should say I was the first, can you believe this, the first woman chair of BHRC. We now have the next woman chair, and we have a phenomenal executive, most of whom are here this evening. So thank you, all of you. And also can I thank Amanda June Chadwick, who put together this with real care, and she's our one member of staff, and we probably don't thank her enough for the amazing work, in fact, that she does do. And we're always ready to say, you know, there's another statement of concern, something else that's happening. So thank you very much. And really, I just want to really thank all the people from the NGOs who are here, all the partnerships. Tanya Baroness is here, a huge partnership with Plan. Article 19, a phenomenal work for the Journalist Index. There's just too many to mention who all, it's really working together that we're actually able to make a difference and actually get some of the people out of prison. We've achieved that, who ought not to be there, and to try and help make people's lives a little bit better. And it's a real privilege to work with you all, and I'm just absolutely overwhelmed. So thank you so much.